Hello, friends. This is John Morgan with Tim Hargrove, and this is the Economic Empowerment Masterclass series. The purpose of this series is to help you grow your income and your wealth so that you can fund your life and your purpose. So there are 4 master classes in this series. Each one has 6 lessons. So this is masterclass number 1, which we call Foundations for Success. And this is lesson number 2 of masterclass number 1, which we call Why This Matters. So we're going to be talking about why this whole thing we're talking about, funding your life and your purpose, why that matters. Tim, how you doing today? You ready to do this?
Yeah, it's great. And this is always an exciting series for us to teach, and I'm excited we get to share it with so many in this format. And I want to encourage you today that to make sure you've done your assignment from last time and to talk about that in the group. So you can take a moment in your group and you can pause the video right now and you can go over the question. We gave you this question: if you had more income and more wealth, how would you use it to fund your life and your purpose? So it's a great question. Creates a lot of fun discussion if you're doing it in a group, but at least write down notes for yourself so that you've really have this in mind as you progress through the video today.
We're also rolling out this first masterclass. We're rolling out the lessons free on social media platforms. And so if you found them or if you're watching them because of a social media platform, please like us and share us. Share this content because it helps us build our empowerment community, and we appreciate that a lot. So, all right, man. Well, let's get going here and let's start talking about this. I'm going to share some graphics with you here. So let me get going with that and why this matters. So we're going to give you 3 reasons why growing your income and growing your wealth to fund your life and your purpose matters. And here are the 3 reasons. The first one is we've already said it. It's kind of in that purpose statement, but it is to fund your life and your purpose. So Tim, one of the things I've discovered is that life is expensive. How about you? Have you discovered that one?
Yeah, life's expensive, and I think it keeps getting more expensive, not less.
All 5 of our children are young adults, and it was interesting watching them come into their young adulthood. That one of the great discoveries they made was how dadgum expensive life is.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. Yeah. No, it is, John. And it's great for us to let's take this on. And one of the things I love about our course is we're not shying away from this,
right?
As being a very real and important need in our life.
Yeah, so I want to use a graphic to just kind of help people think a little bit through their life and purpose. And so we call it 6 levels of purpose. And the first 5 levels come out of this material that was developed by the American psychologist Abraham Maslow. So this is called Maslow's hierarchy of motivations or need that people feel. And so he starts at the bottom, which is the physical or physiological needs. Like we all need air, water, and food and shelter. These are just things we need to survive. And his theory was it's hard to jump up to the next level until you get the previous levels taken care of. So these things cost money. And then he jumps up to the level of issues of safety. And you know what? If you're poor, it's hard to live in a safe neighborhood. I don't know if you've noticed that or not, but
yeah.
it's hard to do. You need money for safety, and then love and belonging. It's hard to keep a family together. It's hard to keep good relationships together if you're just struggling all the time, financial. And then things like, in a good sense, esteem, to feel like I'm achieving some good things in my life. And then for Maslow, his top one, he called it self-actualization, which is the idea of being all you can be. And there's a good sense of that. God has created us for a potential, and we want to see people reach their potential. All these things, whether it's education or career, all these things take money.
Yeah.
One of the things we want to challenge people to do, though, is to reach a level of purpose that is above all of these, and that's called the level of the transcendent or transcendence. And what that means is to live for things that transcend the physical world and that are bigger than ourselves and that last beyond our lifetimes. That's the truest, highest calling that God has created us for. We want people to begin thinking about, what are the transcendent purposes that I care about in life that I would like to live for? Your thoughts on that, Tim?
Yeah, you know what? You can go through those first levels and even make it to self-actualization, but be quite empty on the inside and unfulfilled, or not feel like you are really exchanging your life for a purpose. And so reaching this higher level, I've known a lot of people, John, that had achieved a lot of success in their life in business, maybe by the time they were in their 40s or 50s. But they realized pretty quickly that that's not the top of the ladder, that there is another level there, and they're trying to really move from success to significance in their life. And that's very much about what we teach.
So let me ask you to kind of keep going on that conversation and talk a little bit about some resources. And then I'm going to have you walk us through several questions that people can be asking themselves to really focus on discovering their purpose at a higher level.
Yeah, here's a couple of the resources that I love. Many years ago, first at our church, and then later I did it on my own when I was living in a different country for a period of time. I went through the Personal Life Mission Workbook that was written by you, John, and by Steve Johnson. And I walked through that. It's quite a process. Some of the people that we train and work with, their leaders, we've taken them through that. And it's a great resource. So that's a big part of really working through at a deep level to get to that place of significance. But also, one of the books that I think is a great read for everyone, and if you're really working on career development, you're trying to rethink all that, maybe you're a young adult trying to work on career development, this book, From Paycheck to Purpose by Ken Coleman, is amazing. He co-hosts with Dave Ramsey on the second largest radio broadcast in the world. And there's pure gold inside this resource. And there are 3 questions that he kind of brings up when you're trying to really define this area of purpose. He talks about getting clarity on this area of purpose in your life. So the first question is, what do I do best? It's a question around talent. I've always wanted to be a rock star, John. I don't know if you knew that about me, but there's just a problem, and that is that I can't sing and I can't play an instrument. And so, I could
that's a little bit of a problem there.
Yeah, bring up the second question, because I think that they kind of relate. What work do I love to do? Well, I might love to do the work of being a rock star, but if I don't have the talent to do it,
right,
there's going to be a problem. These questions help us wrestle through, who am I? What has God created me to do? What work do I love to do? And what result would I love to create? So when you put these 3 together, I think that's where great clarity comes from. I think that's where there's some great answers for you. And I don't know how it's been for you, John, but for me, this has been an ongoing wrestling match in my life to answer these questions well.
Yeah.
And to keep answering these questions well throughout the different seasons of my life.
Yeah, no, this has been an issue since as my teen years to this date, keep coming back to them. And I mean, it's the reason why I'm doing what I'm doing now, is I feel like this is what I do best. And the kind of work I have to do to make this happen, that's the work I love to do. And the outcome we're trying to get, I love trying to get those. I love empowering people and these other things we're going to be talking about here in just a minute. This is my heart. It's what I love to do. So, and when you feel the importance and the weight of the purpose you're trying to pursue, then you realize it's important that I get the resources so I can do it well. God created us as spiritual beings, but he also created us as material beings in a material world. And it takes material resources to do the work he's called us to do. And those resources are not just going to fall out of a tree or fall out of heaven. God has created a way for us to create them. And that's why this matters, what we're doing.
Yeah, and many times people ignore this part. I've been guilty of that. I've been guilty of going in and focusing on the work that I love to do, but not really focusing on funding. How do I go about funding this, this life? In fact, I think for some people, John, not being able to fund it is the thing that's holding them back from doing the thing that they really would love to be doing.
Yeah. All right, so let's go to second reason why this matters, and this is near and dear to our hearts, because the number one purpose of People Prosper International, our organization, is to solve poverty. We empower people everywhere to step up to a whole new level of what God's called them to be and do in their lives. But we have a special burden and a special calling to solve poverty around the world, and so it takes money to do that. It takes money for us to do that work. And we even teach the poor, how do you follow the pathway yourself where you solve your poverty by creating the income you're going to need. So poverty is a really big issue in the world. This picture gets to us every time we've seen it. It's in our Power Book training manual that I think a lot of the people have who are taking this course. But this is the picture of a little boy drinking from a dirty puddle in the Kibera slum in Nairobi, Kenya. And when we're in high poverty situations, we see situations like this all the time. But here's the statistics. According to World Bank, there's right now about 850 million people who live in extreme poverty. That means they're living on less than $1.90 per day for everything. That's their housing, their food, health care, education, everything they could possibly need in their life. And then there's another billion above that group who live on the edge of extreme poverty. They're just one crisis away from slipping into extreme poverty. So they are poor. They are the working, living poor, trying to stay away from absolute hunger. And so the need is huge. The need is big, and there's a huge body of Christians in the world who live in these high poverty areas, and they're struggling with poverty. And we feel that God has called us to address that and to bring solutions to it. So it becomes a very personal thing for us, Tim, and I've struggled with it in my heart, and God calling me to it. I know that you've struggled it in your heart and mind, and God calling you to it. Why don't you share your thoughts on it a little bit?
Yeah, my first exposure to extreme poverty took place when I was doing youth work, and I led a team of teenagers and a few adults, and we went into Juarez, Mexico, and we went not just in the city, but we traveled outside the city to a barrio that was literally a city of about 100,000 people that was built out of trash. So every part of the city was built out of trash. And the people, we went to this really sweet family who were living in a house made out of trash, and we built them a little home. And it was about 8 by 16 feet. And, they were so thankful, and it touched our hearts. But here's the problem. They were still living in poverty. And so we did improve their conditions a little bit, but they're still living in poverty. So after that, I went to many other places in the world like you have, and the same thing happened, John, and we're going and we're doing good work and we're helping people, but we're really just helping them live a little bit better in poverty. And finally, one day it just dawned on me, that's not good enough. That's not good enough. And I think we can do better than that. And that's really, I think, the heart behind your founding of PPI.
Yeah, and I had the same experience. Actually, my first experience was also in Juarez, Mexico. It was in the 1960s in my childhood, and man, the sights of extreme poverty that I saw in those days as a kid, just it messed me up. And God has never let me get away from it. And since then, he's just seems like God has dropped me into the highest poverty areas around the world. So you've seen them, I've seen them. We know the sights, we know the smells, we know the sounds. of high poverty. We know the desperate human stories of it. I mean, it's absolutely heartbreaking. But here's the good news. The good news is that we know what solves poverty. We know what creates poverty, and we know what solves poverty. We know it from the research. We know it from the historical record of it. We know it by knowing who is out there in the world who's actually solving poverty, how they're doing it, and what we are teaching is exactly the way they're doing it. And we've done the field work. We've been doing this out on the field now for close to 15 years. We've been teaching it for 20, but we've been doing the work in the field of high poverty areas for close to 15. We've seen people's lives absolutely transformed. We know this is the pathway out of poverty. And so, I mean, it's one of the reasons why I'm so motivated. I know this works. And so it's interesting. We will have people watching these master classes that they're trying to solve their own poverty.
Right.
They're at that first level of human need, the physical need. And I just want to encourage you, this is the way. And it's the historic way that people have been able to rise out of poverty, and you can do it also. And be faithful in it and learn it and follow these principles and practices. It will transform your life. And then a lot of people that are watching this masterclass series, they're not in poverty, but they do want to do better, and they want to do more with their lives. And the same principles work across the board for all of that. So our vision is to lead 1 million people out of poverty by the year 2030 in our organization, People Prosper International. And we know it can happen because it works. So that's the second reason. Let me go back to sharing on our screen. And the third reason, so the first one is fund your life and purpose. The third one is to solve poverty. The third reason is to grow Christ's kingdom. This is going to hit people a little odd, I think, because I think they're going to think, you're telling me that we grow Christ's kingdom by growing our income and our wealth? And here's my answer. Absolutely. Because if you use that to fund your life and the purpose that God has for your life, you are going to grow Christ's kingdom. And when you understand the full teaching of the Bible on this topic, you're going to realize that the Bible, this is what the Bible teaches. So I'm going to take you into a little bit of biblical teaching, a little bit of biblical theology. Really, it's kind of the intersection of theology and economics. But let me take you into a little bit of biblical teaching on this topic, that how this is to grow Christ's kingdom. First of all, Tim, before I get into that, I mean, when I say that, I know Christian people are going to be like, no, you grow Christ's kingdom by prayer and all these spiritual things. And I'm saying, yes, it does take all those spiritual things, but it also takes the material. What's your first reaction to that?
Well, I've worked with too many different missions organizations to know that they can't operate without funding. Yeah. And so, yes, they have spiritual people and spiritual disciplines and commitment to the Word of God and to doing ministry. But without funding, none of that work happens.
Right.
And that's part of this that ties in with us having a purpose in our own life, John. Yeah. And not only is there personal life change that happens to us and ourselves, but purpose happens that touches other people's lives as well.
So let me go into this biblical teaching. And the first point I want to make is that God's work is universal. God is concerned about history. He's concerned about the whole world. He's concerned about all people. It's all his world. It's all his kingdom. It's all his work. And so in Genesis 1:28, when he gives his first command to humanity, his command is to go be fruitful, multiply, fill the earth, not just fill the church, fill the earth and take dominion of it. Of what? Of the whole earth, of all of it. So theologians that get this properly, what they say is, what God is saying is that we are to be God's emissaries for every part of the world and every part of human society. We grow Christ's kingdom in every sector of society. In Psalm 24:1, another expression of it is this: the earth is the Lord's and everything in it, its people all who dwell in it. And then when you come to the Gospels in Matthew chapter number 5, Jesus is teaching in the Sermon on the Mount. And he says this: you're the light of the world. You are the salt of the earth. Let your light so shine before men that they may see your good works and glorify your Father in heaven. So being the light of the world, we shine the truth, the light, the direction for mankind. That's part of our role in the world. And we do it to everybody. It's a world thing. It's not you're the light of the church, it's you're the light of the world. And you're the salt of the earth. So salt has healing qualities. It has preservative qualities. It has taste. It makes things taste better. It has health and healing properties. And so it is saying you are the salt. You provide all these good things for society and for culture. You're not just the salt of the church. You're the salt of the earth. So in other words, Jesus is saying, get out there.
Yeah.
Get out there in the culture. Get out there in society and be the light. Be the salt. So there's a big division in Christianity over this topic. And let me use a metaphor to explain the two different views. If you think of the world as a fishbowl and all the people in the world like fish in the fishbowl, and you think of the water in the fishbowl, like the culture that we live in, the debate goes this way. One side of Christianity will say, our job is not to clean up the dirty water in the fishbowl. It's not to clean up culture. It's to save people out of the fishbowl. Another group of people will say, well, it's not our job to save people for eternal life. It's just to clean up society. So we're just gonna clean up the water. I would contend that what the Bible is saying is that they're both our job. They're both the work of the gospel. We do save people out of this world for eternal life through the gospel of Jesus Christ, but it is also our job to be the filter that cleans the water of culture and society. Christianity and the church has done it many times historically in the world. And if Jesus were using that metaphor, he may not say you are the light of the world or the salt of the earth. He may say you're the filter of the fishbowl. Now it's both. We are saving the fish and we are cleaning and creating great culture. So later in the Sermon on the Mount, when Jesus was teaching us how to pray, Jesus said to pray this way: thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. So the interpretation of all these things we've been talking about is this: the kingdom of God exists wherever God's will is done. So Jesus was saying, pray that God's kingdom will come and his will be done on earth as it is in heaven. God's will is done completely in heaven. On earth, not so much. And we are to pray and work that on earth, more and more of God's will is being done here. So if God's will is being done in my life, then God's kingdom is growing in my life. If God's will is being done in my marriage, his kingdom is growing in my marriage. In my home, it's growing in my home. If I'm growing it in my business, his kingdom is growing in my business. In my church or in my community, to the degree that we bring about God's will, we're bringing about God's kingdom in that place and time. And so the application is that our kingdom culture mission is to grow the values of Christ in all sectors of society to create good culture. All right, so that was my sermon. That was my sermon of the day, Tim. That we are to save the fish from the fishbowl, and we are in charge of cleaning up. I mean, who else? Who else has the truth to clean up the different sectors of society and to make it good and a blessing for everybody and honoring to God?
Yeah, when I think back, John, of the picture of the little boy drinking out of the mud hole.
Yeah.
I can't just walk past that on my way to go preach a sermon in Africa.
Yeah.
I can't just walk by that and pretend I didn't see it.
But many can and many do.
Yeah, I think that's a thing we all have to wrestle with in this area. But I just got to a point after 34 years of pastoring and traveling around the world. I've really just gotten to the point in my life where I can't just walk past it. I know that it's a big problem. And I'll be honest with you, for much of my life, I felt like the problems in the world were too great and that I didn't really have any answers. But if the Bible didn't address this so well, then I would still feel that way. But it's there. It's there. Christ did it. And we know of other people, role models, who are heroes to us that have gone out into these places in the world and made a real difference in multiple sectors of society.
Yeah, and I want to bring one up as an example. One more slide before we get to that example. Just kind of fleshing this out. It is God's will for you to grow your prosperity, to fund your purpose, to grow his kingdom. I don't think you are going to hear anybody else who's a Christian teacher tell you that. Maybe one or two. But I'm putting my stake in the ground. I mean, People Prosper International, this is what we teach. We teach that it is God's will for you to grow your prosperity, to fund your purpose, to grow his kingdom. And as we get deeper into this masterclass series, we're going to show you historic cases of different Christian groups around the world. They believe this, and they changed the world because they believed it. So we do that in the sectors and the institutions of society, like our families, in religion, and churches and ministries, business, government, education, science, healthcare, art, entertainment, and media. Not everybody's called to all these sectors. You pick the sectors that you feel God's called you to. And we try to get transcendent results, transcendent outcomes. Like, people do come to faith in Christ. People are empowered with God's truth and God's spirit. People can live in freedom and not in slavery and not in tyranny. People can live in justice and not be subject to injustices. And people can experience prosperity, and we can solve poverty. So the hero, who is a hero both to you and me, is this great guy, William Kerry. He's known as the father of modern missions. And I'm going to give a list of things about his life that's pretty lengthy. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on any of it. But this was a guy who was saving the fish out of the fishbowl, and he was changing the water in the fishbowl. Right. So here's the story. He sailed from England to India to become a Christian missionary in 1793. And he raised his money for his passage on a ship for he and his family, and to be able to live for 3 months in India until he could create his own income. That's quite an interesting model for a guy to go, just get me there and I'll figure out a way to create my income. His first job in India, he was managing an indigo business. Indigo is a dark blue dye that it comes from India, popular product. Then in the course of his life and his work there were 7 recorded converts to Christianity directly through his ministry. More than that, he created a whole Christian movement that history just shows. I mean, it became a massive movement of Christianity in India. He founded the first degree awarding college in India, in the city of Serampore. That's quite a deal. Some of the people were studying for the ministry, but others were studying in the arts and the sciences for secular degrees, so that they could up their careers and they could benefit the culture of India. He started schools for poor children who could not afford to go to school. He became the world's expert on the ancient language of Sanskrit. He translated the Bible into Bengali, Oriya, Assamese, I'm not sure how you'd say that one, Marathi, Hindi, and Sanskrit. He translated the Hindu classic Ramayana and other Hindu classic literature into English. What he was doing is he was exposing ancient Indian culture to the world. He campaigned to end the practice of sati, which in his day, when a man would die, they would take his widow and burn her alive on his funeral pyre as he was being cremated. I mean, it was a horrific thing. In his biography, Kerry describes seeing it in action. They almost killed Kerry a couple of times because he tried to stop it while it was happening, but he campaigned to end it. And in his lifetime, it was outlawed in India. He campaigned against the caste system, meaning you're born into different levels of society and you can't rise above the caste that you were in. He wrote grammars on Bengali, Marathi, and Sanskrit. He founded the Agro-Horticultural Society of India and Calcutta. He gave the scientific name to certain plant discoveries in India that are to this day in the scientific community. The word Kerry is part of that Latin name of those plants. He made developments in growing food and agriculture in India. He served as professor for 30 years at the College of Fort William, and he's a kingdom culture icon. Wow. I don't know if that inspires me, if that it just makes me want to quit. It's like, dude.
What it does for me, John, is it confirms to me that the principles that we're teaching, these are not new ideas. In fact, they're just sometimes have been lost in some places or lost in our thinking. And this isn't new. In 1793, he already understood that he was going to go to India and he was going to make a difference there in multiple ways, in multiple sectors of society that were going to, and it was going to be his way of showing God's love to the people and bringing glory to God. It was an advancement of God's kingdom and making a real difference in the society itself. And so that's the part where that makes him such an inspiration. And look, he's an inspiration to millions of people around the world throughout history, from that time to the present. Quite a legacy and an example that he's left to us.
Yeah. So that, I mean, there's just a lot of people from a secular point of view in India who would point back to William Carey and say, look, you know, maybe we're not Christian, but we look at this guy and what deep respect we have for just the cultural benefits and blessings he brought to our country. And for a lot, it planted the seeds of the gospel that people were far more open to Christianity, and then it really helped the Christian movement explode in India. Well, so yeah, the summary of why this matters is it matters to fund your life and purpose. It matters to solve poverty, and it matters to grow Christ's kingdom. Man, big stuff, big stuff. And that's why Tim and I are so motivated for what we do, and that's why we're so happy that you are taking these master classes, because I mean, these are just huge things in the world. They matter. Let me go to just a little bit of a quick housekeeping as we start to wrap this up. I want to remind you about the training manual for these master classes. It's our book called Create, Own, and Grow. You can get it from Amazon.com or from our website. You can get a free e-sample of it. That's the 7 of the best pages of it. When you get a paid copy, when you pay for a copy of it, you pay for copies that we can give free to people around the world when we're training in high poverty areas of the world. Also, when you go on our website and you pull up the master classes, there's other resources like the lesson notes, the lesson PowerPoint, the discussion questions, and assignment. There's a lesson test if you want to take it. Also, there's an audio version if you want to listen to it like in a podcast form. And then I also want you to know about our pre-launch special bundle. We value this whole masterclass series of 4 of these 4 master classes. There's 6 lessons to each one of them. We value it at $600, so $150 per masterclass. We're giving you this one free. These are the release dates of when they're completely released on our website. So if you buy them separately, $150 for the next 3, that's $450. You can bundle it for $300, and we also throw in the digital power book. $995 is what that would have cost, but we throw that in. But right now we have a pre-launch special bundle price, which is good until May 1st of 2022. And that is $100 for the whole enchilada. So we think that's just a great deal. And want to encourage you to go to our website and to select that option, and get the whole thing, and follow us through with it. And we're excited to just keep this journey with you. So Tim, how about just kind of walking people a little bit through the wrap up things of today's lesson, and then we'll bring it to a close.
Yeah. So at the end of each lesson, when you get the materials, you'll see some discussion questions. use those in your group. And we always encourage you to go through this as a group if you can, create a group experience. It's good for you and it's good for the group, for other people in your life. And then there is an assignment there as well. And so we want you to always do your assignment before the next lesson and then talk about it when you come back into your group setting.
Yep. Thank you, Tim. And so just the final wrap up, why does this matter? I would put it this way. The very purpose of your life is at stake, and the fate of the world is at stake. You may not impact the whole world, but you can change your world and a lot of people in your world. And that's what's at stake. So I want to encourage you to keep on keeping on with us here. As we wrap up, there's two things that I have for you. I have one ask and one blessing. The ask is, will you like us and share us so that we can get the word out and build our empowerment community? And then the blessing is this: until next time, go forth and conquer. Tim, go forth and conquer. I'm going to go forth and conquer.
Let's do
and see everybody next time. Thanks, Tim. We'll see you next time.
Yep. God bless.